Hi everyone, this video is going to quickly go through what juxtaposition is, and it will give you a couple examples of it. So the definition is that when an author or a poet uses juxtaposition, they are placing two things side by side that are either very different or very similar, and the reason the author places them side by side is so you can spot either the similarities or differences between the two. So we have been taking a look at a Wreath for Emmett recently, and we see a ton of juxtaposition. So here are some examples. So in Sonnet 4, we see this. We see it more in the sestet, where the poet is just describing what Emmett is bringing on his trip, and then we get a very sudden switch in topic matter. So I'm going to go ahead and read it. It says, in his suitcase, she packed dungarees, t-shirts, underwear, and comic books. She gave him a note for the conductor, waved to his chubby face, wondered if he'd remember to brush his hair. Her only child, a body left to bloat. So we see this juxtaposition here between the mundane, like, oh, what did he pack for the trip? She's waving to her son goodbye. And then this very brutal imagery of his murder in that last line. So that would be a juxtaposition that the poet is using. Now, once you realize there's juxtaposition in a poem, it's important to ask yourself why the poet included that juxtaposition. So in this case, it seems like the poet is trying to establish the love between mother and son here, and just how ordinary this, like him preparing to leave for this trip to visit family members, was, and then to contrast that with the awful way in which he dies later on. We also see juxtaposition later on in a sonnet where it talks about how calm the night was, but then it gets into imagery of Emmett's murder here. So again, it's juxtaposing this calm evening with this very violent death. And that particular sonnet mentions consciencelessness a number of times, and it seems like the reason the juxtaposition was included there was to show just how senseless this murder was. Just to give you another example outside of A Wreath for Emmett Till, we read The Widow's Lament. We see juxtaposition here between the way the flowers are described. They're very beautiful, very radiant, very white, and then the widow's feelings. So she's feeling a deep sadness and grief for the loss of her husband. So you have these very beautiful images that are contrasted with these dark feelings of grief and sorrow, to the point where these once beautiful flowers in her mind are now like weighing on her and creating this heaviness and just reminding her of how much she misses her husband. So again, juxtaposition is any time a poet or author uses two images side by side, or places two things side by side that help emphasize either similarities or help emphasize differences between the two things.